Hello everybody, now my name is Hannah, and today we are going to be talking about dynamic duos. Now I'm going to lay down a couple of ground rules, then we're going to go into some speed paints, analyze some characters, and hopefully out of this you'll be able to create your own dynamic duos. Now let's get going! I like to think of a good dynamic duo as someone that is unrecognizable when they are alone. If you think of it in terms of fan art, then let's say, would you draw this character on their own, or do you have to draw them with their companion in order for the scene or whatever you're drawing to make any sense? For example, let's take Isaac and Miria from Bakano. Now, would you ever draw Isaac or Miria alone? No, it would be awkward. You wouldn't know who these characters are because they rely on each other to be recognizable. Neither of these characters really have anything that makes them stand out when they're on their own, which just goes to show that you don't have to have super adventurous character designs, you don't have to make each character super unique, you just need to make them work together in order for this partnership to work. I have also found that there's only two ways that you can have dynamic duos. You can either have them polar opposites or identical. When you're in that gray area, it doesn't really click as much when you have them in either of these two character traits. If we look at something like Tom and Jerry, which are exact opposites, it's very clear who is who, and you could not recognize either of these characters on their own very easily. On the other hand, we have somebody like Fred and George Weasley from the Harry Potter series, who are not only similar in their looks, but also their personality, which makes it obvious that these two characters are always supposed to be together.
J.K. Rowling, how could you?
Now, from my extensive research, I have deducted that there are 4 different kinds of dynamic duos. The first one we got going on in this here speed paint is the complementary type. It's the only category where you can add more than just 2 characters. You can have like your 3 amigos, because it's the least intimate out of these 4 categories. It's more like a friendly bond between 2 characters. So like for example, we got Isaac and Miria, or Timon and Pumbaa from Lion King, or Fred and George, Harry Potter, the Hatachin twins from Ouran High School Host Club. Generally, they're the comic relief, and they might not necessarily have anything to do with the story and the plot. Though I should say, no matter how great or funny or creative your dynamic duo is, if they don't have a whole lot to do with the plot, they're going to be disinteresting and your audience isn't really going to like that. Nobody likes a useless character, so always think through what every single one of your characters has to contribute to the plot before adding them. Okay, enough about that. So this drawing that I am doing, this character I am creating, is very much Isaac and Miria inspired, so I'm sorry about not being very unique on that, but I've had this idea of these 2 characters for a very long time, and I am so glad that I drew it because it turned out so good. So as you can see, I went with the contrasting theme here. And I also wanted them to be some kind of like mobster, robber, thief type of thing. They're just living on the edge, having fun with life, doing whatever they want. And assuming that there's some kind of comic relief, I didn't want them to be able to blend into a crowd on their own, let alone together. So it's a little bit difficult to see here, but not only is he very, very short, she is incredibly tall. And I just really like irony. Also, they're cross-dressing, so no matter what they do, they're not going to blend into a crowd, and they don't care. And just to kind of like push that point over the edge, I wanted you to still be able to tell, obviously be able to tell which gender they were still. So he's got a beard, and I've also made him have like a very rectangular shaped body, whereas she has a ponytail, and she's got a much curvier body. Wherever I could, I added a little bit more contrast. So like he's got the a bit of a warmer tone in colors, and she's got the cooler tones, and also like he's holding 2 Tommy guns, whereas she's just holding a revolver, and just like little things that you can tell that they're very opposite looking, but I didn't want their personalities to be opposite. I wanted them to have fairly similar personalities, just they look very different. And so that's why they work together so well, or at least I think they work together so well, is because they have certain things that they contrast in and certain things that they're very similar in, and so that nice even balance is what shows that they very obviously have to be together. Alright, that's it for our first batch of dynamic duos. I loved these 2 so much that I ended up making a little mini animation of them, which took me 9 hours. I honestly don't understand how animators ever get anything done. Mad respect, bro. Now for the next category, we have the Lovebirds. Now to be honest, I don't have a whole lot on this category, but there's one thing I must say, and that is no matter what, there has to be some level of compatibility going on here. That's not to say that they can't be polar opposites, it just means that they have to have something that keeps them together. And that applies to every single category, not just this one, but for this one it's a little bit different because they kind of have to be able to cope with each other. Now I think a perfect example for this category is the One of Those Days comics. There's a very clear contrast in character design, but the characters both have very similar personalities, so they work well together. That's not to say that they have the exact same personalities, but they both have the same energy that comes with it. Now bear with me, I'm gonna butcher his name, but this comic is by a guy named Yehuda Devere, and it's about him and I believe his wife. It could be his girlfriend, I'm not quite sure about that, but it's about them and their relationship, and so it's very obvious that they are actually together, but that doesn't mean that the ship actually has to sail. Mia and Sebastian in La La Land. There could not be a more perfect example of this, where there is two people who very obviously need to be together, but they're not. So in terms of fan art again, would you ever just draw Mia in her yellow dress? No, because she'd just be a girl in her yellow dress. You gotta add Sebastian, or if you draw just Sebastian at his piano, he's just a guy at the piano. But without Mia, he is nobody. Come on, you guys, this is the perfect. Why did it not happen? How could you do this to me? Anyways, getting back on track. So long as there is a very clear energy between the two characters, that's when you can call them a dynamic duo. They don't necessarily need to be together, though it does help sometimes. You just need your audience to want them to be together. And if you get that, then they are the perfect dynamic duo, then it works, then you're good. So, to talk about this drawing that I have going on here, originally I was gonna do these two characters in some nice pretty field with their dress or whatever, and then I thought that was really boring. So I switched it up, I made them some type of Valerian and Laureline team. They're traveling through space in some hot and steamy spaceship. I mean, no, that's not what's happening. They sell dumplings. They sell space dumplings, you know? They're on the hunt at the moment. Yeah, that's what's happening. They are hunting for their space meat for their space dumplings. That's what's going on here. So as they hunt for their space meat, I thought it would be fun if she had some type of giant gun thing, and not only that, just if it was resting on his shoulder as well as her shoulder, because there's that connection there. You can obviously see that they're comfortable with each other. I gave them some contrast as far as costume design goes, so he's got a nice slick spacesuit on, and she's got this more soft jacket and sweatpant looking look. I also gave them some contrast in their colors, with him having the cooler color palette and her having pinks and purples and such. But even though their color palette does contrast, I made sure that they both were on the cooler side just to keep that consistency. And originally when I was drawing this, I was going to make the background a bright, vibrant green and them a more reddish tone, and I thought that the by putting a red layer over top of a cooler color, it would bring out some kind of cool contrasty look. And it does, it makes it look really cool, but I ended up ditching the green because it didn't look as good as I thought it was going to look. And I was going to make it a lineless drawing, and I don't know why I didn't do that. I really should have made it a lineless drawing, because that would have looked so dope. Ugh, Hannah, why do you do this to yourself? I have one more point to make before we move on to the next category, and it's that generally when you are writing a story, especially if it's got some kind of romance thing, never, ever, ever have the ship sail in the middle of the movie. One example of this is when I was watching Sword Art Online. Now, I don't know why people hate on this show so much, and if you like this show, I have nothing against you, so don't worry. But when I was watching it, the one thing that really bugged me about this show was how Kirito and Asuna, they got together in the middle of the series, before you even cared about them getting together. Now, I liked how they tried to mix it up a little bit because it is getting old how you're pining for two characters to get together and then finally at the end, at the last minute, they do and then you're satisfied and then the movie ends. But that was too soon. It was too quick. We didn't care about the characters long enough for them to get together and then they did and then we weren't interested anymore. So what I'm trying to get at is if you're going to take this approach of having two characters hook up in the middle of a movie, then you gotta figure out a pretty good way to do that because you can go south very quick. Alright, that's it. Hope you liked it. We're moving on to the next one. And now we have one that's a little bit different than all of these. It's man's best friend. A boy and his horse. A gal and her cockatoo. So basically for this one, it's a person with an animal of some kind. Now, I realize that most of the time when this works in the way that I'm trying to express it, is that the animal generally doesn't talk, but still has some type of a human characteristics to them. Like if we take Tintin and Snowy, for example, those two are obviously they're obviously inseparable, but Snowy does not talk, even though it is a she, right? Hold on a second. Oh, I guess he's a guy. Okay, well he's named after Hergé's old girlfriend, so, I mean, my mistake. So Snowy, ou Milou si tu lis en français, doesn't talk, except for in the very first book, but he does a lot of things that are very human, like he'll go find things for Tintin, or he'll find characters and push them towards other characters. His role in the series is not just to be a sidekick to Tintin and just be there for looks, he actually influences the plot quite a bit throughout the series. And if we look at character design, they both have a very similar look to them. So they both are very small, they both have a very warm look to them. Another example of this would be like Aladdin and Abu in Aladdin. Now, why a monkey is absolutely perfect for Aladdin's companion is because they're both supposed to be fairly mischievous, and both character designs, they look fairly similar. Like if Abu were to be a human, they probably would look the exact same. They both have a very scrawny look to them, and they also have the exact same hairstyle. And as far as personality goes, they both have a very mischievous personality. Now, like I said before, no matter how good your character design is here, if the animal doesn't do something to move the plot forward, then they're just going to be looked at as being useless and disinteresting. Now I'm going to share a couple of different characters who are not seen as dynamic duos, though they do kind of fit this criteria, and I'll tell you why. Now, without being put next to another character from the Bebop, Ein would be unrecognizable and just be seen as a regular Welsh corgi if you were to draw some fan art of him. But the reason why Ein is not a dynamic duo with any character is because there are 3 other characters on the Bebop. Now, your closest bet would be Ed and Ein, but why they're not exactly dynamic duos is because Ein shares this kind of a connection with every single character on the Bebop, and so though Ed and Ein have a little bit more of a special connection, it's not as strong just because there is more interference from other characters. Also, if we take a look at Mushu and Mulan from Mulan, they don't really have this super dynamic duo relationship, mostly due to the fact that Mushu has such a big personality on his own, and that has a lot to do with the fact that he can talk, and though I did say before that that it's kind of a requirement that they don't talk, a good example of a character who can talk and is an animal is like Shaggy and Scooby. You're probably not gonna just draw Shaggy or just draw Scooby. Well, you could just draw Scooby, actually. That's probably one of the very rare cases where you would just draw the animal and they would still be recognizable. But anyways, In the case of Mushu and Mulan, Mushu's got such a big personality. He is basically just another character. So if you were to classify them as some type of a dynamic duo, you wouldn't classify them in this area. You would probably go back to the very first category that we had. Now to talk about my character design that I had here, I decided to go with some guy and his snake. I was originally going to do a type of bird thing, but I didn't, so sorry about that. I took the similarities approach, so as you can see, he's a very lanky guy, just kind of like snakes are very small and not small. This guy definitely ain't small, but they're very skinny creatures and they like slither around, so I tried to make sure that he was a very slithery looking guy, kind of edgy, you know? I also I just noticed this now, so he's in a wheelchair and snakes can't walk because they don't have legs. I didn't even intend to do that, but that's pretty cool that I did that subconsciously. Anyways, also another thing I wanted to mention is that snakes have patterns on their skin, or it is skin, right? Scales? I don't know. They have patterns on themselves, and so I thought it'd be cool if he had some kind of tattoos or something like that, and so I gave him a snake tattoo. I gave him his actual snake's patterns on his leg. And one other thing that I thought was pretty cheeky was the fact that he has a cigarette. You can't see the snake's tongue from here, and actually you can't see it in the final product, but the snake has his tongue sticking out, and he's got a cigarette sticking out, and I made them both kind of like pinkish color, so it's like his tongue. Yeah, I thought that was pretty smart. Just giving myself a pat on the back, don't mind me. Also, they both have a very green color palette, and so that helps to keep everything very consistent. And we're done. That is all for that one. Now we will move on to the very last topic. It is the rivals. Everybody loves a good arch-enemy combo, and there is only one requirement to make this one really good, and that is the fact that you just need two characters who hate each other. But there is a catch.
Da, da, da.
There has to be a very legitimate reason for why these two characters hate each other. They can't just hate each other just because. But that doesn't mean you have to make up some long, complex backstory. The simpler the better, actually, because that would be way more realistic. Like if they're holding a grudge on the other person. Because as soon as you hold a grudge on someone, everything they do is bad. Now for my example here, I've got Izaya Orihara and Shizuo Harajima. Now, to be honest, I'm kind of contradicting myself here because there's not really like a set, solid reason for why these two hate each other so much, except for the fact that they're just such opposite characters. And also the fact that Izai is an actual douchebag who tries to convince people to commit suicide. Everything about their character designs, from their personalities to their physical designs, like something as simple as Shizuo having blonde hair and Izaya having brown hair. Shizuo is compulsive and he has a bad temper, and Izaya is always calm and strategizes absolutely everything. Now, I'm sure there's a way that you can make two characters identical and have them be rivals with each other, but generally when you do this, they have to be quite opposite to each other, and because they can't understand each other, they become rivals. Another great example of this is like Batman and Joker. They're both similar in the sense that they're both actually insane, but Batman is more the calm and collective insane, whereas the Joker doesn't care about anybody and is evil just to have fun. If we look at their character designs, Batman is always way darker and way more black, whereas the Joker has more bright colors and is more flamboyant. I think I've said all I can say about this topic without repeating myself, so I'm just going to talk about this drawing that I did, which was so much fun. I haven't drawn in this type of a style in so long, like since my very early comic making days of, that would have been like 5 years ago. Dang, I've been in this business for so long. But Hannah, you haven't sold anything yet. Oh, shut up! So for this one, I thought it would be funny if they were two vampires and one of them was gonna go and watch Twilight, but then they realized that the disc had been broken, like physically snapped in half, and so one of them obviously did it. I didn't make it too clear which one did it. My bad, but I'm gonna say that it's the one on the left that did it because he's like some superficial vampire and he thinks that Twilight is a disgrace to the vampire nation. I also put some contrast in their character design, but you've been watching this video long enough, you know what's up. I wanted there to be a way that they would have to see each other all the time, so maybe like their parents are both pureblood vampires or something like that, and they have to go to each other's house all the time. And they probably didn't really like each other at first, because you know how when you have your parents' friends or friends of friends, and then you just get pushed in with them, and then sometimes you don't really like them. But then this sealed the deal. After this, they're like, we ain't friends no more. Over Twilight. Alrighty everybody, thank you so much for watching. I hope you were able to take some of this information and stick it into your own character designs. I hope I didn't just talk for 20 minutes for nothing. That would have, actually it was more than 20 minutes. It's like, what time is it? Whoo, boy. Okay, well, time to wrap it up here. Thank you so much for watching. And you will see me in the next video. Adios!